Games like Bully brag about their open worlds and the player's choice to do as they please, but how much content is actually available from the start? We'll check how much of Bully's content is accessible without doing a single mission, and in time compare it to other games to see how it scores. The goal is to obtain as high of a game percentage as possible. Cheats and mods are not allowed, but glitches, even though they're oversights, are game mechanics nonetheless. Without spoiling anything, the amount of new discoveries in this video will surprise even the most experienced players of this game. I can also disclose that the discoveries made in this video made it possible to make a Bully series that will be released each week after this video, and contains access to new areas, weapons we didn't think we have access to, and much more. Hopefully that's a big enough teaser to make you stick around. Without any further ado, let's get started. We'll start off with exploring the area we have access to. We need to find out which things that provides us with game percentage that is accessible before the first mission. We need to map out everything that's possible to be obtained and set up a plan where we find the best order to do it all in. Let's get started with the first chapter of this journey. The protagonist Jimmy Hopkins gets dropped off at Bullworth Academy. We're immediately greeted with the locked gate that introduces our first intended boundary, as we're only able to access the school grounds. I found Bully's own wiki that lists up the requirements for achieving 100% game completion, and started by going through each of these to see what's accessible. Having a look at the collectibles first, there's several rubber bands we can collect around the school grounds. Only one of 25 garden gnomes are located within the school, so that's a requirement we're only able to make a small dent in. There's quite a few Grados Gremlins or G&G cards we can collect. There's also transistors we can collect and give to a homeless guy living on school campus, which in trade will teach us some fighting moves. Only one is located within the school, but is on a roof, and the ladder used to access this transistor doesn't appear before a few missions later. When it comes to money making methods, there are two located within the school, but penalty shots, which is supposed to be located here, is not available before the first mission. And neither is keep ups, which is supposed to be located here. This removes the possibility of winning the penalty shots and keep ups minigame at least one requirement. In our upper right corner there's supposed to be a clock we can follow to determine when stores will be open, when our classes start, and when it's time to go to bed. This mechanic is introduced during the first mission, and therefore classes are not accessible. We're therefore neither able to fail 5 classes. We're actively completing another requirement at all times, but regardless it's one that will take a long time and probably be fairly miserable. It's to travel 100 kilometers on foot. There's also the requirement about 100 kilometers on a bike, but since we don't have one, it's not possible. Speaking of miserable, I found that the crates spread around the school all contain soda. Later in the game these crates contains various weapons as well, but since no one is unlocked, it's soda all the way, which grants us the possibility of collecting 500 soda cans this way. There's 2 rubber bands located inside the school, which will be locked after we complete the introduction. So we'll collect these right away, one being located in the kitchen of the cafeteria and the other one outside the principal's office. There's lockers you can lockpick to obtain items and clothing. Even though it would have taken a long time, I had a small hope we were able to lockpick all the clothing items we needed. But lockpicking, like almost everything else, is introduced during the first mission, so that won't be possible. Jimmy starts off with 50 bucks in his pocket, and since we don't have anything else to spend it on, we can spend it on soda for an easy access to 50 of 500 soda cans. There's several fire alarms we have access to, and we have to pull them 20 times. There's fruit and plates we can pick up in the cafeteria and throw at other students, and that's something we'll have to do 1000 times for 1000 projectile hits. As the first part of the introduction, we're paying a visit to the principal. He tells Jimmy in simple terms that he's human trash and that he's placed here to be chiseled into an upstanding citizen. And after that heartwarming pep talk, we're commanded over to the boys' dorm. Here, a group of boys have gathered to beat up Jimmy as a housewarming gift. And after dealing with them, we head inside where we're greeted by Gary, a nice guy that wants to show us the boys' dorm's soda machine. Since this is a requirement, we're forced to use one of our dollars on a soda, but since this was the plan anyhow, this works out great. As the last part of the introduction, before being able to save, Gary tells us we should probably change into our uniform so we don't get in trouble. And for no other reason at all. With everything we've mapped out up until this point, we're looking at about 2% game completion, if we were to end it here. But let me introduce the first curveball of this video, the internet. A place where children of all ages and professional YouTubers have shared their discoveries playing Bully for almost 20 years. And yes, if there's a forum post or a YouTube video mentioning something about a glitch, clip or other strange happening, I watched it. One discovery that was thoroughly documented occurred when you crouch and throw a kid into a trash can. What you get in return besides a glare of confusion from a fellow student and a body full of adrenaline? Well, the ability to fly. Walk up anything with a higher altitude and you'll keep the height you're on. So using the stairs in front of the school and then the railing, run over to this conveniently placed hole in the wall. Run over to this tree to gain some more height and you have access to the whole map. That's access to so many more rubber bands, gnomes and G&G cards. And since we now had the ability to fly, I ran over to the school roof where the transistor collectible was located, but apparently this doesn't spawn before a later mission. So that's the last nail in the coffin for those two objectives. With access to the map, we're now able to access bikes, so we can complete travel on a bike for 100 kilometers. Most of the stores are locked until chapter 2 when you're supposed to access them, but I found a few that was still accessible. The first one being the Dragon's Wing, a nerdy store where we can buy stink bombs, itching powder and marbles. All of these are obtainable for free though, by beating up students that run around school campus with them. Then there's the final cut. This is major because we now have access to buying clothes. I experimented with buying various clothing items and they all grant the same percentage per item. There's not that many clothing items inside the store, so the goal is to obtain as many clothing items as possible within our budget. Since we're forced to spend $1 on Gary's soda machine, we have 49 bucks to work with. I did the grown-up thing to do and made a spreadsheet with all the prices of the clothing items to make sure we maximize the amount of clothing items I could obtain. Then there's the boxing club. It's accessible, but besides a rubber band locked behind a door, there's nothing else we can interact with here. The carnival is accessible, and by running over to it with the levitation glitch, passing the pay booth you're supposed to pay $1 for entering and dropping down, we're granted with a free ticket. Tickets in this game expire the day after you buy them, but this ticket will last forever. That's because there's a bug in Bully that makes the ticket stay forever as long as you saved the game the same in-game day you obtained it. And since we don't have any in-game time, we don't have to hurry back to school to save this progress. Inside the carnival, all the carnival rides and games are locked, making these objectives unobtainable. The carnival shop on the other hand is accessible, but since there's no way of obtaining tickets, we can't buy anything from the shop. Turning around inside the tent though, we're greeted with the amazing view of all the arcade games this game has to offer. 3 of them are required for getting a high score on all arcade games, those being Consumo, Nutshots and Monkey Fling. These arcade games gives us 1% each and collectively grants a bonus of 0.23%. They cost 50 cents per time played and therefore provides us with a higher return on investment than the clothing item does. So I'll have to complete each of these arcade games consecutively and on the first try and spend the remaining $47.50 on clothes. Then there's the Blue Skies warehouse. I was really optimistic about this warehouse since during the Halloween missions there's tombstones scattered around the school campus. And after Halloween they are all moved to this warehouse. Unfortunately they do not appear in the warehouse before Halloween. There was on the other hand hundreds of crates, which I figured would be a good place to gather the 500 soda cans at a later point. There's a secret pirate located on an island you can swim to, but this pirate doesn't appear before chapter 2 unfortunately. Another discovery I made on the internet is that if you grab a fire extinguisher, knock out a student and just continuously spray them with the fresh and pure air, it will count towards 1000 projectile hits, making this task go from one of the most time consuming to the simplest on our list. So we had a new plan. Levitation glitch inside a carnival for a free ticket, beat all the 3 arcade games on the first try, complete the introduction, and gather all the collectibles from around the map, buy clothing for the remaining $47.50, trigger the fire alarm 20 times, 1000 projectile hits using the fire extinguisher, run around for 100 kilometers, and use a bicycle for an additional 100 kilometers. As I had done my research up until this point, I was leaving for a trip and wouldn't be able to touch the game for a while. I had gone through the completion guide thoroughly and set up an order to collect everything in. But simply leaving for a trip wouldn't stop me from considering ways of achieving even more. Having several hours alone to kill both on the train, airport and during a flight, I did what any sane person would do: download the Bully on my iPhone. I started experimenting with what happens between the introductory steps, which are before visiting the principal, fighting the students, buying a soda, and changing clothes. After I bought a soda, instead of changing into the school uniform, I went out to get knocked out to find out where I was placed afterwards. I got sent straight back to Gary's soda machine. I bought the soda again to continue my experimenting, but instead of my balance saying 49 after buying a soda, it now said 48. Did I just lose $1 for the same soda purchased? I went to check the stats and now it said 2 sodas bought. Not anything major by itself, but I knew what I had to test next. I started up a new save, went to the final cut, spent all my money on clothes, got busted and redid the introduction up until Gary's soda machine. Now, with $0 to my name, what would happen? Will I softlock the game or get a freebie? My balance now saying $1, I had been given $1 by Gary. Instead of spending the dollar on the machine, I went out to get busted again in hopes of being provided another additional $1. But Gary checked if I had $1. If I don't have $1, I'm provided with one, and if I have to spend my own. I went out trying to spend $1 on another machine. My money is green, it worked, but being busted again, I was not provided with another $1. Trying the machine in the boy storm, you're given $1 as you interact with the machine. This meant you only get one universally usable $1 for the first time initiating the Gary Soda interaction. Having completed this game previously on my PS2, Xbox 360 and PS5, I got to thinking and I vaguely remembered something about soda being free after buying 100 of them. I looked it up and a Steam post lists it in their 100% completion guide. I started wondering what would happen if we initiated the soda machine without money when the soda is free. Well, there's only one way to find out. So during my flight, I bought a soda, got busted and repeated the process 100 times. You're seeing a small part of it fast forwarded 2000%, so you could say it was time consuming. Okay, and this will be the 100 soda, let's see if it works.
Just a soda machine.
Breakthrough. 100 sodas bought for an additional 0.23% game completion. I then get busted one more time to see what would happen if we interact with the machine having $0 and the soda being free. The change in balance that's been visible with every purchase before in the top right corner is not showing anymore. Rockstar obviously didn't think about someone having free soda during this check, so since our balance says 0, we're given $1, but since the soda is free, we get to keep it. And by that we found a new money-making method in Bully. It's having its limitations would be fair to say, considering we're only able to hold $1 at a time. But this lets us use all 50 bucks on clothes, go back to the school and get a free soda before traveling to the arcade with Gary's soda $1 to complete all the 3 arcade games. The best part being we have unlimited attempts as long as we run back for each $1 spent. And this is where this project progress stood still for about 2 weeks before I returned back home. I was eager to start the game back up and try out a few things I had contemplated. I actually contacted the biggest bully YouTuber called Swekta back in 2019 and pitched this exact video to him. And here I am today, glad he never did, so I could make it my own passion project. And I don't blame you, Sweg, this project has been heavily time consuming. Oh wait, what's this? Oh, the prefect is showing off today's sponsor, PartyPal. Well, we don't have an official sponsor really, but it's my own app, so you help me out by checking it out. PartyPal with its 5 million downloads worldwide contains 18 different games, perfect for every party, and make sure you find something that suits your mood. It contains thousands of questions in various categories. PartyPal is free to download and use, with additional questions possible to be purchased. Help me out by checking out PartyPal today. Now back to the video. The more difficult something is to obtain, the more valuable it is. Finding a new moneymaker in Bully has boosted my confidence in discovering even more. I was no longer content with what was already listed in a completion guide, and I was ready to give it my all. One of the things I wanted to look closer at was trying to obtain access to certain interiors, like the gnome wrestling in the carnival. This would have provided us with a great moneymaker. There's also several rubber bands and G&G cards that are inside interiors we don't have access to. Therefore, finding out where the interiors are located was in focus, and using a mod I was able to see the coordinates of the school dorm and all the other accessible interiors. I began flying to them from the main map. This took a lot of hours, and as you can see, for example here, the minimap is loaded. You appear on the map at the locations of the interiors, and a few things during each mission is loaded. When starting up the game, Miss Denver's and the blimp that sends us to the principal office is loaded. After that, the boys outside the school dorm are loaded, and the same for Gary, ready to show us the soda machine. Besides from actually being able to start the mission by falling on the blimp, the school loads like it should, and I concluded that flying to the interiors are not helpful for anything. Having a look at the first two interiors we do have access to that are still of interest, we start out with the boxing club. We have the main room crowded with preppies and a soda machine, but in addition to that there's a locked room on the second floor with a rubber band inside it. There's a door on each side, but both of the doors are locked. After a lot of thinking and testing, I came across this. Jimmy is clearly halfway through the wall and the window broke. At this point I was sure we could access the room with the right momentum and angle towards the window. Low on health, I got myself a free soda, and after a few more attempts this happened. Breakthrough. An additional 0.04% was obtainable by an easy to replicate method. With my success in the ring, I confidently shifted my focus over to the next interior of interest. The Dragon's Wing, or the nerd store if you will. It has a fitting safe house in the basement that you're supposed to access later in the game. Using a mod, I'm able to pass through the first locked door, leading down to the basement, where we're greeted with the second door. This one is possible to open, so the second door is no issue. But lo and behold, there's a third door that is locked before you eventually enter the room of interest. Here both a G&G card and a rubber band reside. The room is loaded, but there's no conveniently placed windows this time, only locked doors. What I have to achieve here is approach the angle of some of these walls in the right way, or manipulate an animation in the right way to clip Jimmy's body inside the wall, and hopefully be able to jump through to the other side. I hadn't realized the magnitude of this challenge yet. That this was to become my Moby Dick, the hurdle to my Sisyphus? Well, I was about to find out. What was my first step in this attempt? Well, just running apeshit around the room and spam all the buttons and pray something magical happens. After doing this for a few hours, I figured this room was solid. Considering I've never seen anyone break a wall before, I knew I had to try something else. I asked in the Bully Speedrun Discord if they knew any way of clipping walls, but they confirmed that it wasn't any known way of doing so. While being at the topic, I want to give a big thank you to Nikki, PGSD, Swagia and the rest of the Bully community on Discord. They have saved me a lot of time with all their knowledge of the game. Now my next idea was to try to maintain the levitation glitch inside the store, so that I could try to run up against the roof that's hopefully not solid. The problem occurs whenever you enter an interior, the height coordinate for Jimmy is reset and the levitation glitch breaks. But after messing around with it for a while, I found that crouching while entering the interior keeps the uncertain height value and you keep the levitation glitch inside the store. Outside the store, you simply grab a hold of a helpful soul, bring him over to this trash can around the corner and place him into it. I found that most of the time pressing the button to enter the interior didn't work before running in circles and wasting about 5 minutes. After a while, I figured it had something to do with the action you did with the trash can that still thinks you're located next to it. Anyway, I can solve this issue by running far enough away to despawn the student that sits comfortably in the trash can. Since we have nothing but walls to run against inside, we'll crouch and run to slowly climb the walls. There turned out to be 3 different sections during height within the store. The height you can stand, then you're forced to crouch. Finally, you come over to this lamp, which forces Jimmy into a prone position. He does this since there's no longer enough space to crouch, since his altitude is gradually increasing. During the crouch and prone part, he will climb slowly up until he meets the roof, that's unfortunately solid. Here I just continue to do the exact same thing I did without levitation, and that's being rolling around trying to find a weak spot in the roof, and while in prone, Jimmy moves around by himself. So I put something on the controller to angle the movement stick to one of the sides, put on record and left the room. I actually let this process run for 2 days straight, but to no avail. I downloaded another mod that lets you spawn the various items and weapons in the game to see if any of them were able to help me break out of the room. After trying every single item in the game, I even tried using the throw ball to see if they can be thrown at the collectibles to be collected, but no, Jimmy's body has to be near them. Bully having 3 versions, I had so far only been playing on the Scholarship Edition. I figured I'd try to clip the wall on the Anniversary Edition since I had it on my phone. I tried all the same things I had been trying on my PC, but nothing seemed different there. I then got to thinking and figured it's probably the oldest version of the game that's the most buggy one, right? I dusted off my PS2 and booted up Bully. Even though the bad graphics brought back some nostalgia, I did not accomplish anything new unfortunately. While digging out my PS2 in the cellar, I caught a glimpse of my Xbox 360 and, well, I brought it along for the ride. After hours of messing around on the Xbox version, I could see some difference in how Jimmy interacted with collisions, but nothing that showed results. Okay, now we need a timeout. Let's make this perfectly crystal clear. Ordering the Wii version of this game online for $15 after already having tried 4 different versions of this game is a heavy sign of stage 1 denial. And a few days later it was at my doorstep.
Do you guys know what the definition of insanity is? Do you know what it is? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
I know, but it's gonna be different this time. It could be anyway.
Yeah, this time we're gonna get results, man.
That's right.
The combination of firing up the Wii for the first time in 14 years and the clunky motion controls was love at first sight. I immediately saw a difference in behavior, since where the other versions put Jimmy in prone and kept him there, you could easily get Jimmy back up in crouch from prone by walking around and making sharp turns. His head now being over the ceiling, it was possible to press the up arrow to aim and get a head height view. He was still locked within the box that is the store, but we got a view we hadn't seen before. I continued testing and then this happened. I did it, I was through the wall, breakthrough. I'd gotten through the wall with the levitation glitch intact, so now I could just float over to the room with the collectibles and pray the roof wasn't solid from above. And it wasn't. I landed perfectly in the room and I could now collect both the collectibles I've been trying to get for such a long time. I knew I had to redo this entry on a new save, since I didn't bring any firecrackers to knock myself out, and I had spent $1 already during testing. Now I'm not done telling you about the greatest discovery we just made, because most of you probably think it was the roof of the store we clipped. Well, it was actually the wall, and the best part being the levitation glitch wasn't even necessary. We could have done the exact same thing from the floor. Now I present to you the William clip. I will demonstrate it on this wall, and before any of you say anything, the name is non-negotiable. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance and I'm using it. I will present you with countless new discoveries during this video and the upcoming series, so I'll make it worth it for you, I promise. So you're now witnessing the William clip in action. The wall clip process is crouching, aiming with Jimmy's back cornered behind him, moving the movement stick on the controller in gentle small pulses in a downwards right angle, which causes Jimmy's movement animation to move slightly in the same direction and ignoring the solid wall he's moved against. And just like that, we're through the wall. I tried this out several places and it's very easy to replicate. Now I only got this clip to work on the Wii version, hence the name. I did try all the consoles, PC, mobile devices, and none of them worked. And now we also have access to the nerd safe house before the first mission. We can use the save book, and to get out again we just punch one of the nerds. So excited about my new discovery, I swept around the world looking for other ways to use it. I went to grab a student at one of my usual places and was immediately confused when one of the gnomes I had seen so many times wasn't there. Assuming I might have already smashed it, I went to check a few other places I knew they were supposed to be. When no gnomes were possible to be located, I assumed they might have other locations on the Wii version. I looked them up and was met with this unfortunate information. There's a Wii exclusive mission called Small Offenses. It provides a storyline behind the destruction of the gnomes, and the gnomes won't appear on the map before this mission is available. I desperately tried moving the Wii save file over to the PC version, which obviously didn't work. I made another new discovery I figured might be worth ignoring the garden gnomes for, so I went to test it out. I found out that crouching while interacting with the save book lets you save from anywhere by using the same interact button. So I activated the levitation glitch, used the save book glitch, and used the William clip to get through the Boy Storm walls. I walked over to the other safe houses we don't have access to this early in the game. My idea was that maybe saving from inside those interiors would make a save from that place, and by doing so letting us load the save file and be placed inside those interiors instead of the Boy Storm. If it was possible, we could get the last G&G card we're missing and unlock the Grotto Master outfit. Unfortunately for us, the game checks which interior you started out with and makes a save there. So I had to let go of that idea as well. I had incredibly enough found a way to reach the last 2 collectibles that's obtainable, But the trade-off was not being able to smash any gnomes. The 2 Dragon's Wing collectibles would give us about 0.08%, while the Garden Gnomes would give us 1% game completion. I therefore knew I had to let go of the 2 collectibles I had worked so hard to obtain. I had found a way to breach the walls of the Dragon's Wing, even though it wouldn't benefit us in obtaining the highest percentage. Having pushed the boundaries of accessing what's obtainable and not, I decided it was time to do the full run. I would collect everything we've mapped out so far and decided to do the run on the Xbox version. The reason being it showed the most promise of having breachable walls, in hopes that I could one day reload the save and collect the last 2 collectibles. I booted up a fresh save on the Xbox and headed off to start the collecting in our decided order. First on our list is the final cut to buy clothes. I opened my spreadsheet where I had found out that we're able to spend exactly $50, giving us 12 pieces of clothing. The percentage varied between 0.01 and 0.02% for each clothing item purchased. I returned to school for a pep talk with the principal. As heartwarming as always, he lets Jimmy run off to the boys' dorm full of confidence. We then get greeted by our fellow pupils outside a boys' dorm. We sort them out and luckily remember something I was about to forget. I run back to school to pick up the 2 collectibles that would have been inaccessible if I'd continue on and would have made me restart this whole thing. 1 in the cafeteria kitchen and 1 outside the principal, giving us about 0.04% each. Heading to the boys' dorm to be greeted by Gary, which will give us $1 since we're broke. I found an easier way of restarting the soda purchase by just recycling Gary in this conveniently placed trash can. This saved me some time since I had to redo the purchase of a soda, punching Gary, recycling him 100 times. I had finally bought 100 sodas, restarted the soda process to get $1 from Gary and ran to the arcade. Running over to the carnival, I got my lifetime ticket and ran inside the souvenir tent to take on the arcade games. The first arcade game I went for was Monkey Fling. Here you have to toss mud at the spiders while they descend and collect more mud by hitting the bananas, making them fall down. Here we achieved a higher score than 333 points. I then took on Nutshots. You simply have to avoid all the projectiles the enemies shoot at you. The only thing is that this arcade game on the Xbox will kill you regardless of being hit by the bats or not. So I had to quickly kill the bats immediately after spotting them. And this was easier said than done since there's usually other enemies or projectiles in front of it. I had to return to school to grab another $1 and I returned to the souvenir tent to try again. And back to school I went. I had to achieve a higher score than 69,900 points and it took me 7 attempts to achieve it. I could finally shift my focus over to the last of the 3 arcade games, which was Consumo. Simply pick up the non-expired rice, apple and fish and avoid everything else. You have to beat 1010 points, which is fairly easy to do. And there we had it, achieve a high score on all arcade games. I returned to school to buy another soda, so I could get a final $1 from Gary. I could now change into the school uniform to complete the introduction, but decided to do one last thing. I got a great idea of achieving 1000 projectile hits on Gary, since he stands completely still outside of Jimmy's room. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, got into position and got to spraying. The idea worked great. If it wasn't for the Xbox version being a buggy mess. The game crashed just as the possibility of saving the game was about to open. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I knew what I had to do next, which was to boot up a new game and redo everything I had accomplished so far. And so I did. Everything except my little fire extinguisher project, for some would say obvious reasons. I changed into the uniform for an additional 0.27% and saved the game. Having so far achieved 4.53%, I was excited to see how far we could push this. I changed into some of the clothing purchased from the final cut and started collecting the collectibles around the school grounds. Not sure why I did it, but at the time I figured it would make for a better video to collect one type of collectible at a time. So I started just collecting rubber bands, even though I passed other collectibles during this. To do this collection run, I'm following a map online which shows where all the collectibles are located. Even though I have 100% completed this game 2 times before on my Xbox 360 and my PS5, it still makes this task a lot easier since there's almost 150 collectibles to gather. Passing 5% game completion, I'd collected all the rubber bands around the school and used the levitation glitch to start collecting the ones just outside campus. There's a rubber band inside this cave that will be accessible later in the game during a bike race. But by getting enough height we can walk over the barricade and punch to drop down on a collectible. I later figured out that the levitation was not necessary since the barrier is destructible. We collect the rubber band on top of this fallen tree and use the height next to it to make ourselves go to sleep. It's not that high of a jump, so I had to run up to the same point a few times before we eventually got knocked out and woke up inside the school again. Flying over to the observatory, I was greeted by something that felt way too familiar, another crash. I loaded back into the game where we had just collected all the rubber bands within the school area and changed my mind about just collecting the rubber bands first. I went to collect the remaining ones inside the school area before returning to the observatory, putting me back on track to before the last crash. Having picked up everything just outside the school vicinity, I ran through this tall fencing that's not solid from this side. From here I ran towards the town to start collecting there. They're all mostly easily accessible, so I won't show a lot of the ones that doesn't require some finesse to be collected. Breaking down each of the collectibles to see how many we have access to, we start by having a look at the rubber bands. 62 of 75 rubber bands are located on the main map and is accessible. 7 of the rubber bands are located inside the interiors we have access to, like the boys and girls dorm, inside the school during the introduction and so on. We found a way of collecting the one in the boxing gym, but had to let go of the one in the Dragon's Wing. There's 2 located in the school sewer, which is not accessible before later in the game. The same goes for the one inside the Aquaberry clothes store, and the one inside the freak show tent inside the carnival. So all in all, we're looking at obtaining 70 of the 75 rubber bands.
What's up, dude?
Tad's house is located in the rich area of the map. It's locked off with gates and fences, but easily flown to. It holds 4 collectibles, and to get out again, we just take some hard falls from the roof of Tad's gazebo. Picking up the rubber band in the boxing club as discovered went fine. The only thing left that wasn't taken into consideration was how to get out again. If I wasn't so curious about checking the crates to see if they contain anything else than soda, it would have been less than half the health to work with. But I tried to work with the items I had collected. Having no firecrackers left, I tried improvising with the items I had left, giving me below mediocre results. I jumped up on the bench and the angle presented me with one of the guys in the ring. Even though I emptied half of my magazine of eggs on one of the fighters, he didn't care. Having a closer look out of the window presented me with the next contender of, "Will you beat me up?" The egg has been thrown and he does look angry. And we have a winner. Prep is here to knock out of Jimmy so we can continue our journey.
I think that'll be a nice scar.
I went to sea picking up collectibles along the shore, on a sunken ship and 2 placed behind obstacle courses. Having a look at the Grottos and Gremlins cards, 35 of 40 are spread around the main map. 3 of them are inside interiors we have access to, which are the library, school gym and the girls' dorm. We don't have access to the one inside the Dragon's Wing, and the last one is located inside a safe house we obtained towards the end of the game. We're therefore looking at obtaining 38 of 40 G&G cards. When it comes to the garden gnomes, all of them are located on the main map, one of them being at the school and the rest in town. So we're able to collect all of them, and this gives us a collection bonus for completing the collection. Picking up a G&G card I had forgot about in the library, I went to save our progress and to change into some dry clothes. I made some progress towards the 20 fire alarms and grabbed the fire extinguisher. I began spraying down a few too many students and ran to safety in Jimmy's dorm room. The other students won't enter Jimmy's room, so I can spray them from the entrance. As Jimmy sprays his fellow students, he is brought back to the horrible crash that took place on the exact spot he stands now. Having just saved, we continue to spray, and just a few seconds later another crash. I loaded back in and continued to spray. This time Trent Northwick decided to enter the room regardless of it not being allowed. The fresh spray was just too good.
Some boys settle for ordinary, but real heat demands something stronger.
That's intense.
Blaze, odor protection.
He made it easier for me since I now could just stand next to the save book and just save now and again while he waited. And there we had it, 1000 projectile hits completed. and we had unlocked the green ninja costume. Dressed in my new attire, I ran over to the carnival. There's a G&G card inside the carnival ride, but at this point all the carnival rides are locked. But with a little precision we can crush Jimmy's body on top of the card and simply pick it up. Being knocked out lets us avoid having to be busted by the cops and in so losing the potential items we're holding. Flying over to New Coventry, I continue my collecting there. This area is hassle-free and I continue on to Blue Skies. Running through a roadblock that's not solid from our side, we enter Bullworth town. From here I run across the bridge towards Bullworth Academy before turning left down to the shore. By jump spamming along the side of this mountain, you'll eventually jump into the rocks. By swimming along the inside of the mountain border to the shore, you can swim straight into Blue Skies, and we can start our collecting in the last part of the map. There's a gnome on top of the barge that blocks the canal we just sneaked past using the inside of the mountain. We collect it by using a firecracker, giving us the 23rd of 25 garden gnomes. I make my way through the industrial parts of Blue Skies and the trailer park. Collecting the 24th garden gnome and the last few G&G and rubber bands. Being inside Blue Skies, we can enter the asylum by just dropping down behind the fence. I ran around the side of the asylum to enter it using the tree, which is the intended way of entering the area. Here I found and smashed the last garden gnome, which unlocked the gnome costume. In addition to that, it provided us with 0.29% for completing the whole collection. This pushed our total completion above 10%. This was a big milestone, and to follow it, we picked up the last rubber band we have access to. I knocked myself out with some height again and returned to school. It was time to collect the last G&G cards I had forgotten about, and the first one was in the Girl Storm's attic. I decided to leave the only suitable way, being dressed as we are.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Back to work.
Passing Jimmy's boy storm to save, I was greeted with a room trophy I had completely forgotten was a thing. By smashing all of the garden gnomes, we had obtained our very own gnome, and therefore gained progress towards the 100% requirement of unlocking all trophies in Jimmy's room. For the remaining G&G cards, one was located in the toilet stall in the school's gym, and another one on the school's balcony. There was only one left, and it was forgotten in the last city part we visited, which was Blue Skies. On our way over there, I'll introduce another glitch I found, which I've called the Orderlies glitch. We started off by clipping out of the map next to the tree we've used for gaining height, just outside the school. We run alongside the map until we meet the asylum, and continue around it. We enter the industrial part of Blue Skies by going through the factory walls. We followed the road out of the factory and biked over to the trailer park, and this is where we meet Theo. He's one of the orderlies, or guards if you will, at the Happy Vault Psychiatric Asylum. We'll continue to have a look at him, but first I ran into the backyard that had the last obtainable G&G card and ran back after him. I've never seen one of them spawned outside of the asylum before, but I was able to replicate this using the same method. I think this happens since you pass the asylum area, and since you're outside of the map, there's no place to spawn an orderly until you're inside Blue Skies. After observing him for a while, he functions just like a cop. He runs after anyone that breaks the law. The only difference being that he drugs down his perpetrators instead of busting them. At this point I was sure for a few seconds I had glitched the game and unlocked something that I'd never seen before, but it just so happened that the next step I took after kicking a man while he's down completed walking for 100 kilometers. I observed Theo for a little while longer, watching him take on the local bullies. With tight running shorts unlocked, I asked Theo for a colorful ride back to school.
I'm twice your age! You want to get me angry? Restraints are on the way, and nothing you can say will stop me from enjoying it!
After squeezing into the running shorts, Jimmy pondered on what to do next. We had a long bike ride in front of us and we needed all the energy we could get. So Jimmy ran over to the school entrance and started chugging soda can after soda can. I finally reached the final stretch, drinking the last can, And there we had it, 500 sodas consumed. Like if drinking 500 soda cans weren't enough, I went to grab supplies for my long journey, and this hat was the closest to intravenous injection I could think of. I pulled the fire alarm the remaining 5 times to warm up the wrists, and by doing so we completed pulling the fire alarm 20 times. The firefighter helmet was slick, but it wasn't what we needed right now. Using the levitation glitch, I ran over to the town to grab a bike. I started biking around while taking in everything that had been accomplished in this run. Enjoying the soon-to-be victory laps around the town as I worked on accomplishing the last goal. Well, I soon came to realize that the 200 laps in the Daytona 500 would be child's play compared to this. And that's because every 5 kilometers or so the game would crash. Over and over and over again. So I had to bike around for up to 5 kilometers, bike over to the outside of the school gates, destroy the car of a female driver, run over to the boy storm, levitation glitch back out, grab a bike and start all over again. It didn't have to be a female driver, by the way, it just always happened to be one. I had finally arrived at the final 3 kilometers, I had swapped which part of the city to bike around in for some change of scenery, and it was in blue skies I biked the last few. And there we had it, 100 kilometers on a bike. What a relief to finally be done with the biking. And there we had it, 11.54% game completion. The run was completed, we had obtained 11.54% before starting the first mission. Surely this was the highest obtainable percentage. Well, let me introduce the video's last curveball. The banana clip.
Tasty.
The thin line between madness and genius can only be crossed by accomplishing what you've tried to obtain. For anyone that's completed Bully, we know that the game contains 5 chapters before being sent to free roam, and well, this video is no different. I'll start off by showing you the clip that made this creative name a reality. I'll explain what happened here using a simple sketch I made in SketchUp. As you can see, the dragon's door is a perfectly sealed off square, solid as a rock except for inside the door to the basement. Within the door jambs, yes, I had to look up a few words during this video, the inside of the door jambs works as a passage between the dragon's wing store and the basement, connecting them. So by forcing Jimmy into the door, using the levitation glitch and positioning him in just the right angle, he will lay down as it's no room to stand. Since punching cancels the prone position, Jimmy is forced into the empty space over the door and can be jiggled through to the other side. This can be done since the game no longer have a strong opinion on which side Jimmy should be on. The next door is possible to open, which leads us down to the save point. Since there's no way of maintaining the levitation glitch, there's no way of repeating the same process from the basement to the bedroom that contains the 2 collectibles. I went back and looked at the videos of item manipulation, and there was one item that seemed more interesting than the others. The banana, which have proven to be an incredibly powerful item with several features not known about before now. Let me go through all of them.
Tasty.
You can throw the banana, you can drop it, it's edible so you can interact with it to eat it. You keep the banana peel in your hand, and here's my new discoveries. Infinite bananas and therefore infinite food. By dropping the banana peel and quickly pressing the interact button to pick it up again, you're given a new banana that's ready to be eaten. And like that ain't enough, it even got some Pokemon features, which is what we'll be using it for. But I'll come back to that soon.
Tasty.
Bringing the banana to the dragon's wing, we use the levitation glitch to cram Jimmy into the top of the door jambs. As he gets into prone position, we punch to make him stand up. Here I angle Jimmy's running towards the side of the door instead of forward, since we don't want him to enter the basement. I had to quickly shake the movement stick and spam the sprint button to be let loose and move towards the side of the door. I tried several times dropping down on the east side of the entrance, letting us walk the shortest length within the walls. It proved difficult as the store's interiors on the eastern side seemed to be crammed inside the wall, making it harder to enter. Walking along the inside of the walls are much harder than it might look, as the game wants to push you out on both sides, so I have to constantly counter every push. Unfortunately for us, it proved way more repeatable to land on the west side of the basement door, which is the opposite side of what we want. Having 2 routes we could follow from here, I decided on going south and enter from below. Starting my journey, I have to follow along the walls of the hallway between the store and the basement, This part was challenging as the wall pushes you upwards until you're at the top of the interior. It might look easier from here, but since the roof isn't solid, you just fall into the hallway. You get stuck at the top and have to quickly spam the movement stick and sprint button to move in any direction. Which direction you're sent in is almost impossible to control, so it took a lot of attempts. I did manage to run alongside the top of the wall in some instances and luckily landed inside the wall for the cellar. My best technique following these walls were while crouching and aiming, giving me the best view and giving me more time to counter any attempt at pushing me out of the wall. I was hoping for no more surprises and that it would be smooth sailing from here. Unfortunately for us, there was an enemy alongside the path. A bunch of chairs inside the nerd safe house blocked our path since it was slightly placed inside the wall. I weren't able to damage them from inside the wall, so I had to pull out our secret weapon, the banana clip.
Tasty.
Just like in true Pokemon fashion, we threw out our banana, which would then quickly and repeatedly do small amounts of damage to the set of chairs. The banana broke the chairs, letting us continue on our path. Well, unfortunately, after all of that, our path had come to an end. The reason being the door was just as solid as the rest, and the small outside staircase had solid walls all around. So it was back to the drawing board. This time I figured I would go north, alongside the store, and hopefully have better luck that way. Since I figured out the hard way that the floor outside the store wasn't solid, I tried my luck going alongside the door wall. But this door was no different, just as solid as the rest. So I made a third route, back up north and just jump over to the wall on the other side of the store entrance. And after a few attempts I did it. Now I just had to carefully follow the wall down to the promised land. Walking alongside the remaining part of the store was no issue, except for around the table inside the store. Parts of it was inside the wall, making it harder to pass. I managed to jiggle my way down the hallway without being shoved up to the roof. We were closing in on our destination, being as close as we were going south the first time. And like we haven't met enough problems in our path already, the movement technique I had fairly good control over at this point didn't work anymore. And it was all because of a wild locker which blocked the back side of where it stood. It blocked our path into the treasure room. So, another use for our beloved banana clip.
Tasty.
Well, not really. The locker wasn't destructible, so I had to do this part without my trustworthy companion. The path being blocked off, I just kept on jumping and sprinting in somewhat the same direction as I wanted to go. There was no technique at this point, but that wouldn't matter as long as I managed to pass the locker. And make it we did. We had done it. We were inside the treasure room on a bully version that let us smash garden gnomes. I picked up the rubber band and G&G card, giving us 0.04 and 0.03%. Luckily for us, Algie entered the room to take a breather, so I took the opportunity to let myself out using his face.
You keep that up, I'll have to ask you to leave.
Now we just had to complete all the other things I had already done on the Xbox. So I ran over to the final cut to buy all the clothes, pulled the fire alarm 20 times, bought 100 sodas, achieved a high score on all 3 arcade games, ran out of the tent, returned to school, but figured I would ask the fortune teller for some guidance before I continued on. After having contemplated my life decisions for a while, I took out all my anger on the other students, achieving 1000 projectile hits. I drank 500 sodas before going on a collection run, collecting 39 of 40 G&G cards, 25 of 25 garden gnomes, and 71 of 75 rubber bands. I jumped on a bike and biked around for 100 kilometers. As I had mostly used the bike during this run, I had only walked 20 kilometers. Since I had so much walking left to do, I activated the levitation glitch and placed Jimmy so that he wouldn't hit anything while running in circles. And just used the same method on my controller as I did in the Dragon's Wing. This caused me to make another new discovery. Not sure why, but when running in air I got the achievement and running shorts for running 100 kilometers after just running a little over 40 kilometers. So by subtracting the kilometers I had already ran, I was just in the air for about 20 kilometers. I made a new save just to double check, giving me the exact same result, passing just over 40 kilometers. It's a cool find which could be beneficial for speedrunners doing 100%. By using our new discovery, we had completed all our objectives. I ran back to school and into Jimmy's room to make a save and to see the final result. And there we had it, 11.75% game completion. And this is our final percent, by the way. I have no more tricks up my sleeve. But I do have one more discovery I want to mention. During the editing of this video, I got to the part where I talk about testing out the William clip on all the other systems, and realized the only port I hadn't tried was the Samsung port. I downloaded it and started testing, and it worked. It was definitely harder to clip walls, but it worked. So I do assume the William clip might be replicated on other systems as well, if you get the frame rate lower than it initially runs on consoles and PC. So in time we'll be able to compare the 11.75% we made here with other games to see how it compares. Now next week I will post the first video of a bully series I'm very excited about. I will reveal so many new discoveries during that series that we didn't think we had access to. I have a question for you to end this video, but first I just want to thank you for watching the whole video. If you want to be notified next week when I release the next bully video, make sure to subscribe, and I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like on this video as well. Now for the question. How many people do you think Jimmy have to knock out during a playthrough of the game? Please leave your answers in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.